One of the funny things I found going around was the strange thing about the Glasshouse is that there are no animals in it, and particularly no birds. And it was almost like we were putting the bird song in.
I fear that the object would see children at my bedside just for church, the fine light.
The concept about having a piece inside a glasshouse at first came from the idea of how an audience, how a listener interacts in different spaces. For example, in an art gallery, the person gets to choose their own pace and leave and arrive when they want. Same thing in a glasshouse, so you have a certain amount of autonomy over your experience as a listener. And I really like the idea of bringing music into that.
That sense of the music being an installation rather than being something which is forced onto the audience member is something that I think has a real impact on the way that the audience perceives the music. It's where they want to go, what they want to listen to, how long they want to listen to it for. We've managed to take the music out of the confines of a normal concert.
One of the things that's really interesting about this is whether it's one piece or 13 pieces. And that's again to do with the experience. You can experience it as one whole piece because if you think of each singer having a circle of sound around them, there's overlaps between each sound, so you get a sort of leak. And then as you come close to the singer, it comes into focus. Once I actually started talking to Q, they asked us to make sure it was really closely related to the Intoxication Festival theme. So then I started talking to Caleb about mind-altering plants and what were the various themes that we found interesting about that, the way that people talk about intoxication, the way that the place that it has in our culture or other cultures. And that's where the text came from, and the pieces come really directly out of the text that he sent me and the ideas that we were talking about.
My experience of drugs has been of a kind of exaltation or of like feelings of praise, but usually without something that you're praising. And so I was thinking about how you might have a praise song that doesn't have God as its object, doesn't have anything as its object, but and may or may not be real, because drugs are a kind of synthetic high or a kind of something which hasn't been earned.
Hallucinations are not completed into the hour, but passed through the door like adverts for penis enlargement and holy quilted coffins.
My piece is a crazed rambling of a clearly very high guy. Freya's writing is full of extreme dynamics and staccatos and accents and smooth lines, and this guy is clearly sort of in some sort of torment, but making no seriously coherent sense, which is great fun to sing, obviously.
If not for the touch of so many grotty fingers, it would not taste so fine.
Is the intoxicated state when you're out of your mind, is that the sort of authentic thing that tells you about your real self? Or is it your kind of banal, normal life? And I think like these songs are kind of always flitting between those two things.
Obviously, Caleb's texts explore all sorts of different aspects of intoxication, But then within the way Freya set the music, some parts are very pensive, other parts are so dramatic. For example, the particularly interactive soprano in the piece named Exit 1, she's continually engaging members of the audience as they walk past.
The character is coming out of her drug-induced haze and she's trying to figure out what happened the night before.
And then flitting between what seems to be a hallucinogenic state, then back into reality. And sometimes I think the audience can get confused by that.
Did we give some correction?
What's meant to be an act, what's meant to be her as a singer, what's meant to be her as a real person engaging with them just one-to-one. And I think that almost draws the audience into the intoxicated state. They're not quite sure where they stand in relation to the performer.
Is that why you're not replying?
It's quite unusual to have this kind of immersive music. I've been to events where you have immersive theatre, immersive art, but for people to understand that classical music is still relevant and that it's still being created, it's really important that it's in such a place like the Kew and that people get the chance to interact with it.
It was also really interesting seeing how the audience reacted, which was really cool. I feel that quite often the audience is slightly too separated from the performance, and I really like how some people were really excited to find all the vocal ensembles and the moment when they all realised that something was going on.
It's fascinating really because you don't often get so close to the public, and you can see some quite instantaneous reactions from them as well. The bit that I repeat as I walk through the conservatory is so many grotty fingers, which I think particularly puts the public at discomfort.
Was to separate my
At the end, the singers, from having been individuals, all come together with their own individual lines, singing parts which don't really fit together and merge into a chord which is sort of improvised of their choosing. Then from that we go into the tutti section, which is scored for everyone and everyone knows exactly what they're doing. I think one of the great things about that is how the individuals become a unit. That's the first time you really hear choral texture in the piece.
fascinating to see how people respond. There is moments at which like the whole place seems to suddenly listen, you know, and then it will disappear again.
Equally, then the disintegration of that whole back into the individual parts and how it almost falls apart, linking into the intoxication ideas of how the piece was written, and then everyone disappearing of their own routes back through the glass house. I think that was a really effective way to finish the piece.